Hi, and welcome to part 2 of What is the Family? As there are several theoretical perspectives, it might be helpful to consider theories as sunglasses. Now, just as there's sunglasses with different shades and colors, that doesn't change the world around us. They just change the color. Theories are similar. Theories observe reality and view it from different perspectives, color. They don't change reality, they just view reality subtly or even dramatically different from one another. We could also separate theories into two broad categories. Macro, it looks at the big picture and studies how social values affect families. The theory, structural functionalism, and conflict theory are examples of macro. Micro, it focuses on individuals and small groups. The emphasis is on the relationship within individual families. Symbolic interactionalists and family systems are high on the micro list. We're going to start with structural functionalism. They see family as just one of the social institutions of many social institutions, and family has its own functions as do other structures in society. Family's functions to society include reproduction function, produce children. It helps reproduce citizens. There's a place for physical protection is the home of the family. Economic function and emotional security. And parents who have children are law-abiding citizens and contribute to members of society. Socialization is what they aim for. Now, social placement is when families perform their functions well and contribute to the overall social stability of a society. Now, if every structure functions according to the way it's supposed to, society has its glue. The primary means of family educating their members, children, is through the process of socialization. It's a lifelong process in which cultural knowledge, how to survive and participate in the social life is passed on from generation to generation. It explains how family is related to other institutions and how it contributes to society as a whole. Structural functionalists believe role specialization increases efficiency of family functioning. So one of its strengths for structural functionalism is it emphasizes family relationships to other institutions and how they contribute to the whole of society. Its primary weakness is that it's clear in explaining why families and society change. It often ignores such important topics as family violence and sexual abuse and sees delinquency and crime as a social rather than a family issue. One of the things that comes up quite a bit is it's not very tolerant of variations of family. It likes what is known as the standard North American family, or the SNAF. It's described to be somewhat biased in that it's not a very current structure. It doesn't, deviate much from the nuclear family, if you will. Like structural functionalism, though another theory that we're going to touch on now is known as conflict theory. And it too looks at the family from a bigger perspective. Now, according to Karl Marx, and he's one of the authors of conflict theory, the economic system of a society has a profound influence on all social groups, including the family. Now, some theorists, and they follow what we call Marxism, stress the negative influences and are concerned with power relationships and inequity. Now, others will focus on families, complete with other how they compete with other social institutions for scarce resources. So, for example, how family benefits in the workplace are negotiated. The unions negotiate with employers around the number of sick days and family days and such. Conflict theories are not very strong at demonstrating how families contribute to society as a whole. Neither are they good at explaining why society's norms and values of family tend to change so slowly. We'll touch now on symbolic interactionalism. It's more of a micro perspective. It looks at the face-to-face interactions. Accordingly, individuals develop a sense of self, status, and one's social position and your roles in that position and in your family. The roles are the behaviors that are associated with statuses. It's through the attitudes and the relationships with others that they develop a sense of these roles that they are expected to fill. Now, this perspective considers the range of ways families express love, communication, problem-solving, socializing, participating in community and society, and roles of the husband and wife, and how these roles may adjust due to illness, job loss, promotion, or a new child. Therefore, the best way to understand the relationships between family members is to take a closer look at the meaning that each family's words and behaviors gained through that family. Now, some of the means that we do this include putting yourself into another's shoes. It's called role taking. When you see your daughter play mummy or your son play father, is role taking. Role conflict occurs because the multiple roles that we may have compete with the demands on our time and energy. If you're a parent, a student, or an employee, and in these times, who isn't? It's become much more normal. So these are the times where these compete with one another and for our time and for our energy, and can lead to what is known as role strain. Now, role strain is a sense of discomfort felt by one who is having difficulties meeting all the role expectations that they have accepted. Now, the value of symbolic interactionalism is placed on people's responsibility in shaping their views of the world. Now, as a result, it has been used as a basis for family therapy. Its major weakness is that it ignores such factors as laws, economics, social class, or values. These are big picture items. They don't look at the big society as a whole. They don't have any macro view, so they concentrate on the interaction between individuals rather than the social system. They're interested in the meanings people associate with the events and symbols and words and actions. Just as we take time to figure out what we do for our celebrations of different events in the course of a year, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, birthdays, anniversaries, we don't all celebrate them in the same way or have the same symbols, same actions, same words expressed for those events. Now we're going to look at family as a system. It considers the family as a system containing a set of interrelated and interacting parts. Anything that affects one part of the family will automatically affect all of its parts. Now, the strength of the family system theory is its ability to account for the impact of one individual's behavior on all members. For example, if a parent is stressed or angry, this is likely to have an impact on all family members. Families also contain subsystems, or smaller groups of members within a family. Most commonly, of course, we have the spouse, husband and wife, that's one group, and some other subsystems can include siblings. And systems and subsystems, they have boundaries. And boundaries which mark off who is a member and who's not. Now, family boundaries, need to be open enough to interact with society, employment, school, friends. So the strength of family system theory is the ability to account for the impact of one individual's behavior on all members. And it explains why destructive behavior occurs across generations. As a result, many therapists use this as their basis for working with families. Now, the weakness, of course, includes the concentration of family system as a whole overlooks experiences of the individual, especially women. In cases of domestic violence in particular, it assumes destructive behavior is a vicious cycle. Little to no reference to the importance of social factors, although the theory is quite capable of including such influences. Our next theory is the Feminist Approach, and they have a great impact on its overriding driving force in much of the current research in family. The focus both in macro and micro perspectives. The gender is a necessary category to understand and to explain inequities in the home. You could be looking at paid labor, politics, law, culture. The predominant view is about patriarchy, the view that family is what they see is the problem. patriarchy that is, in the family, it's based on the power and authority of men in society. And as it turns out, in the family. So gender socialization is part of the root of that. Gender socialization is the process by which individuals learn the socially defined behavior that is appropriate for males and female. The inequity begins here. As we learn what and how it is to behave in a masculine or feminine manner. We learn as boys to be active and aggressive, and girls tend to learn to be more nurturing and a bit more sensitive. Now, some of these things are changing, and it's not the same in every family. Still, widespread acceptance of the idea that women can be fulfilled only as a wife and mother still exists. It's called the myth of motherhood. Now, some ways of inequity affect the family, some ways. Homes, for example, men tend to have more power and control than women and receive more benefits. The housework that often is done by women is known as the second shift. Paid labor. Men get paid more for the equal work. Women had been discouraged from working for many non-traditional roles, like in the military, construction, STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Politics. Women are not equally represented in politics given their numbers, given that they're also half the population. In law, feminists made the initial headway when women won the right to be seen as a person and have the vote by 1929, but only 1929. And of course in culture, we view hockey as being all the Canada's game, and yet it's what helped elevate some women in the prospects of Canada was having the women's Olympic team and having been done so well in their competitions with the United States. The next theory is what's known as ecological theory, and it looks at the relationship between family and society. It sees family as a part of a series of interlocking systems that influence each other at all 5 levels. You can see that there beside me. We'll go look at each one. The microsystem consists of small groups in which people interact face to face. Directly affects the quality of life through the relationships with individuals. Therefore, its nature and quality are important. Each family member has a different microsystem. For example, your young children include whatever or whoever cares for them during the daytime. That could be family, babysitter, daycare. Now, the mesosystem, it's made up of the relationship between 2 or more groups in which the individual is a member. So I'm a member of, a workplace at Georgian. I have a family. I'm a member of that family. I'm a member of, a group for running. I have different groups. My mesosystem is interactive, as yours is. And so you could see a child in a mesosystem might consist of the relationship between a parents and their daycare center. For a parent, a mesosystem might consist of the relationship between the family and the workplace. Then we have the exosystem. Now, the exosystem is a setting in which the individuals really don't play an active role. It's through the mesosystem and the microsystem. So for parents, it includes the school board and the extended work hours. For children, it could include family benefits and the parents' work, such as extended health care. The macrosystem of society, ideology, and culture. Here, what's shared is the beliefs and the basis of policy decisions is in the macrosystem. It concerns with the pattern of relationships between the sexes. For example, the division of labor between males and females, the in and out of the family, whether that's in the workforce or in the family home circumstance. When such policies tend to be adjusted according to changing economics and policy situations or political situations, changes tend to occur more slowly. Then there's the chronosystem, and it includes a dimension of time as it relates to the social environment. Now, external influences refer to the historic period and cohorts. Women in STEM only in the last 25 years. The internal influences refer to changes that occur in the individual matures. So what you felt and believed and saw in your 20s, your perspective there may not be the same as it was and will be in your 60s. I'm over 60, and I know that what I'm thinking now wasn't, and what I believe now wasn't the same as when I was 20. time gives you more information. So the strengths of the ecological theory is that explanations of how society and family interact is there, and it's strong. Now the developmentalists, they look at the entire life cycle of the family from its formation to its end. They break down a family into specific stages based on a child and adult development. They state that a family will change in predictable ways. When people marry and have a baby, there are developmental tasks to achieve. Society expects everyone to achieve the developmental tasks at the right time and to do so successfully, thus being able to achieve the next developmental task successfully, without impediments. Having a baby when is socially expected varies over time. It's getting a little bit like we're older as we're having our first child. It allows for proper care, nurturing, and career development. Now, each stage and task is related to a social time clock. The social time clock, or the social expectation, it varies from culture to culture, but when certain life events are supposed to occur, when you're supposed to start dating, working, marriage, babies, these are all a part of that. Now, developmental theories have been described as providing an idealized model that real families don't fit. I think that's probably true. They rely on the concept of nuclear family. What is the family from part one? Current research is now responding to the changing family forms. And speaking of research, when we think about researching the family, since so much rests on our families and society, things like social policies, economics, our economic realities, education, gathering reliable and empirically based data is important for accuracy and to minimize the amount of influence of personal belief. There are two broad categories when we talk about research that we're going to look at. Quantitative research, data is represented in numbers. Quantitative, numbers. And these numbers are analyzed using statistical computations. Surveys and experiments all take a part of quantitative. Lots and lots of numbers, but not a lot of detail. You have to work that out. So it's like a big net with little holes. It picks up everything, and then it's up to the researchers to put their thoughts and interpret that data. Once researchers have gathered the data, often perform statistical analysis, engaging in correlational, cross-sectional research, cohort effect studies, and longitudinal research. But we're going to first start with qualitative research. This form of research seeks to understand social conditions from the people being studied. Direct information, it's more focused, it's direct from the individual person being observed. It could be direct verbal descriptions based on the in-depth interviews and observations, then the analysis of patterns. In both, there is a premium on being specific and clear. About definitions, what are you studying? And then the deliberate controls for the experiment of bias. Research methods are really important. It's just a quick review looking at research methods. Surveys, one way to gather data, face-to-face, telephone, mail, or internet. Stats Canada does this, and you may have participated in some form of a survey yourself. Experiments follow a good research design. This material changes on condition. There's an independent variable to a dependent variable in the relationship between the two. And this is often done in labs. Natural experiments avoid ethical and laboratory issues by observing in the natural setting and in various conditions as long as it's naturally occurring. Watching hockey parents in an arena, for example. The interview, which is the most common form of qualitative research, uses open and closed questions. Open questions give the respondent the opportunity to answer any way they want, not leading or influencing. It takes a lot of practice to do that. Focus groups is a means of interviewing and engaging several people at the same time. Naturalistic and participant observations. Naturalistic is observing in a natural environment without intrusions by an investigator. It could be through a two-way glass at a daycare, for example. I used to do that. Participant observations, well, these are this is where the investigator takes part in the activities and reports on their experience. A pretty common means is what's known as content analysis. And this is a method that researchers analyze documents, images, and all kinds of records. Different techniques are used to do this analysis. Now, the different kinds of techniques could include correlational. That's one technique for analyzing data, is correlational. Here, it's not about cause and effect results. Instead, its results are a relationship between variables. For example, there's no single cause for homelessness. However, the relationship between unemployment, family breakdown, mental health, these are all variables that suggest they contribute in some way. Therefore, they are correlational. There is a relationship between them when they occur at the same time. We just can't say they cause homelessness, but we can say they're correlational. Cross-sectional research is a method that studies people of different ages and compares them to whatever variable they're studying. The cohort effect, since so much difference can exist between individuals in their 20s and individuals in their 60s, the cohort effect allows us to compare 20-year-olds from the 60s and 20-year-olds today. The longitudinal research is one way to circumvent cohort effect, is to use longitudinal research. This is where the same individuals are studied over a long period of time. The 20-year-olds are tracked and interviewed periodically until they're 60, is an example of a longitudinal study. A decade since their 60s to current time. Now that would be a lot of research right there. Holy mackerel. Okay. Well, that now completes a review of Chapter 1, where we consider what is a family, the legal, personal, and intentional families. We reviewed the varying theories to explain role of the family and its members to society at large. And lastly, we considered the science of family sociology, the research methods. Next week, we're going to explore history, culture, and Canadian families. We consider race and ethnicity, some history, and of the Canadian family, including the role of immigration. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.